FBI, and you get an FBI background check. Now there's people like myself, I'm willing to go through that. I think all they'll find out is that I've been an activist for most of my life, and if they deny me the ability to be a cannabis provider on the reason that I've been an activist and that I have different political views, I'll scream so loud and I won't stop screaming, right? And I think that the rub on this from law enforcement, and I don't know because law enforcement lobbyists don't sit down with low-income patient advocates on the state level yet. They're not really interested in talking to us, which is kind of cool, but in the other realm, it's kind of like, I don't know what their thinking is, but I think their thinking is that they want to be able to deny a permit to people that they know are cons. You know, they don't want ex-cons coming out of prison, setting up shop, you know, seeing all the different angles that they can manipulate people at. You know?
You're saying that non-violent felonies, convictions or arrests might result in you not being able to own a club or distribute or even grow?
Right, legally on the state level. So let's say that you were in prison and you were running a Ponzi scheme. That might throw up a red flag. And
oh, okay. Well, yeah, okay.
Right, get it? So they're looking at white-collar criminology because it's entered our arena, you guys. It's entered our arena. We have people who are multi-billionaire, strange guys coming in, wanting to buy up the cannabis industry, whatever, right? So that loop is in there. The other thing that it does, and this is kind of the scary thing to me and the thing that I want to like really address, especially with San Franciscans. We had two laws just a couple of months going at each other. We had SB 1262, and then we had Tom Amiano's horrible industry-backed law. That finally got killed in the assembly, but let me tell you something that's a little bit disturbing in my mind. Tom Amiano's law had us going through the ABC, which is a known corrupt organization. Somehow the cops in the cities got it better than a progressive Democratic queen and put us through the Department of Consumer Affairs. That's a really sad day for San Francisco that our representative was proposing something more restrictive than the law enforcement lobby and the League of Cities. Mike?
You just said something a few moments ago, though, which is a complete Trojan horse to this entire bill, which is if they're going to turn these records over to the DOJ, then they have just prohibited cannabis in California, period. Because if they're turning the records over to the DOJ and it's federally prohibited, and you're telling the federal government, every patient who's growing, who's involved, it's not even going to be possible.
It is possible because we've already got the law that's going through, everybody knows about the law through Congress where the DEA is going to be defunded in medical cannabis states. That's going to happen. So that's not that you're wrong, Mike.
Okay, but I don't
it's not going to go that way. But the concern is that you're creating a playing field that causes apprehension and causes people to, you know, a lot of people in the next year that provide, grow, or process cannabis. And when I say process, yes, that means you trimmers as well are going to have to be more in the bright light. A lot of people are going to have to make that decision of, do I want to go to the black market or the legal market, because the gray market in California is not going to be available. So it's going to be, you know, the whole state has been a gray market for 20 years, just so everybody's on the same page here. So we're going from gray to white and black. And it's going to be hard for folks to make those decisions, you know, and it's sad to me that I'm not reading a lot about it in the media, especially the thing that scares me that I feel a lot of patients and physicians aren't aware of is that it does create this board to review how medical cannabis is recommended, you know, and it's like, that might not be a scary thing if we get active now and make sure that good people are on that board. It might be a great thing. It might expand. But if we don't get going, it's going to restrict who becomes medical. And of course, then the chorus behind that is Gavin Newsom's working on this thing for legalizing in 2016. But along those lines, again, there's this carving down of the mom and pop, the more gourmet, the more patient-orientated, the more community-orientated. And then there's also this thing of taking the culture out of cannabis, taking the consciousness out of cannabis and making everything very commercial. And for example, I've been friends for years with the lady who has been operating our oldest cannabis dispensary in San Francisco currently, which is the Hemp Center over on 12th and Geary. I've been friends with Ms. Kathleen Capetti for many years. And these people are trying to buy that cannabis club. And you know what the first thing they did when they walked in? They were talking about, you know, she has this very Jamaican sort of Rastafarian decor, right? They said, oh, this has got to go. We don't like this. We're going to, you know, spruce this up a bit, you know. That sort of cultural cleansing for commercialization, that concerns me. A lot of people aren't concerned with it, and that also concerns me, you know.
It concerns me too.
Right? I mean, oh, okay, so, you know.
It's not just dollars and cents, cannabis.
There's a lot more than that. There's thousands and thousands of years of history and culture and cultural values and community building and things that, you know, some folks in our own, that say that they're with us in our own industry are definitely willing to dispose of.
Sell out.
Sell out, yes. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to anchor this space as a cultural space for us all in the next year. A space where we're still going to have patient meetings, where we're still gonna. So I'm going to try to prepare to go through the state process, you know, and make sure that that our cultural center, that there's at least one or two cultural centers left in San Francisco that will actually remember the activism that it took to even get this going. And it came from our city, you know, it started here. You know, and
We have a record of it online.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm scared of the sellout. I really am. So I've talked a lot. I want to take some questions and some comments, and then we've got some music coming and a little more munchies. I'll start with Oscar.
Out of all what I've heard, that irritates me most is that us being regulated by organized crime just does what the hell they want. And cannabis is coming from all over the place besides stateside. We already busted cannabis coming from Mexico. They got trucks that are, say they're produce trucks or wheat trucks, what they call counterfeit labeling, and they're filled with drugs. They just found that out. And every time I hear about medicine being regulated and stressed down where you can go to the mission and buy any cannabis you want. And it's all organized crime. Organized crime just continues and continues. No one ever talks about it. McCain did it during his primary. He's the only one that ever brought the organized crime up. Oakland, San Francisco, all the cities are corrupted. And when I hear government, you know, trying to regulate something that's trying to be good for people, getting involved with.
Well, I feel like we are talking about healthcare.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the healthcare for the people that are in wheelchairs. I told you the same thing. Have these providers. They want to cut their hours to 40 hours flat out. And who can live on that? You know what I mean? And Governor Brown is now in the process of passing that 40 hours. And the Organization of Healthcare
rate all around the world that all the people that used to go to a coffee shop and pay $1.25 for a coffee and sit there for 6 hours and blog and interact, ain't happening. It's $2.50 for a cup of coffee at the two shops in the Mission. So people can't even go in there. I mean, it takes them 3 hours to change to go get a cup of coffee now. Overall, everything's gotten so expensive. I think people are tuning out, disengaging. I'm not saying they're giving up, but they're totally moving in other directions where they don't care about the laws. They're going to do what they want with the cannabis, and they're turning off to the whole system. And again, it goes back to trust. These states that are passing laws, if you think about the millions of hours spent just since now and when in the 70s when it was decriminalized nationally.
For a moment.
For a moment, but I'm saying overnight the entire nation got together and says, no, we don't need any laws, we're all cool, and it was done. But now with the way society is and super gentrification everywhere, the pressures are so great, I think people are just so fucking squeezed. It's at the point where people will argue with a cop and tell them to fuck off rather than cower. And people are just in a different headspace now. And there's no trust with the state governments. And there's just no trust for the legislative system. Lawyers are leaving the legal system. It's just really falling down.
And the corrupt ones are staying.
And the corrupt ones are staying, and the banks are folding, and the empire is crumbling, and they're trying to rise up other new regulatory things, and it just ain't working because nobody wants to be controlled anymore. Everyone's like had it. And so I'd like to see this community, with its history of differences between groups and individuals, stop all of the inter-family conflict and holding on to the past, and everyone in the city needs to come together, whether we like each other or not. And you think if all those hundreds of millions of hours spent in each community, county, state, blah, 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 trying to make laws and all that shit, if all that time in the last 20 years was spent on one thing, ending all the laws and putting all power back to the local, we'd all just be so much farther ahead now. But we got stopped saying, oh, maybe the safe island is medical. We know we got the natural right, but we're just going to step over here to this island called medical, and we're going to build that up. And it worked for X amount of time. But see, now the corporate machine and the Gettys with Gavin as their front man, they got the plantations bought, they got the seeds registered, they're ready to go. They can't wait to get a registered list. So they're going to take 1/4 of all American adults, males, and some women, that have been arrested and go, oh no, you didn't pass the FBI background check. And you go, well, what did I miss? They go, oh, we can't tell you, we can't disclose that information. You gotta tell us the court date. I've been denied benefits with a letter that says, we found something on your record, but we can't tell you what it is. Please tell us about it. And I'm going, oh my God, was that Florida when I was 18? Was that jaywalking? Was that a court date? I still confess. They won't tell you. So when you put this responsibility away from the individual adult and away from the individual local community, and you give all those powers for all these outsiders to tell you all what to do, they can do what they want, hide what they do, delay you from getting the reasons why, but in the meantime, the corporatocracy eats up 80% of the market share and the space and the resources. By the time you're approved, hey, I need some workers. Oh shit, everybody's employed with the corporate machines. I can't offer those kind of wages, or whatever it is. You're out. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a master list of people they want in the game, and they don't care if they're criminal or not, because if you work for them and you're criminal, you're cool. If you're a snitch, you're cool. But if you got something more than 5 years, even if they're not going to extradite you, and nobody cares about it wherever you go, in medical legislation in the cannabis world, they go, oh no, you're not eligible. It's just another way for them to make sure they get the lion's share of all the benefits of a gift. We've got pre-existing rights to this thing.
I agree.
Yeah, that's right.
The whole marijuana thing's a fraud. Yeah, that's all.
So I'm going to start back with, I saw Alex, I saw Brent, and I saw Steve.
And then me.
And then Mike. Alex?
Yeah, I would just like to say, like, the housing programs and the treatment programs in the city, they are just now wrapping their minds around the 1996 legislation. They don't even know about SB 420, and this is going to give them every excuse in the book to evict people.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm trying to educate them, and I'm actually meeting with the Progress Foundation director to rewrite theirs, and I'm going to try to meet with other directors as well, because it's just ridiculous.
Thank you for your activism. That's a really important town hall that I want to have in and of itself here, which is just housing and medical cannabis. Because that's a huge barrier for people that don't own land, basically. I mean, unless you're upper to, middle class, a lot of us have to still deal with a landlord or a housing development or whatever.
Last week there was a report saying 2/3 of San Francisco will never be able to afford a house.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, that issue is something that I think all of us would like to see as a town hall issue in times to come. Steve and then Brent, and then
I can say, I saw it on French Cop, on a French news station, the bill that passed.
Okay, see,
It's
this
funny.
is what I'm talking about, you
It's
guys.
funny that-
France knows about this bill,
It's funny
but a lot of
because-
us didn't.
Hold on, I didn't only see it on there, but it wasn't on no Americanized news. It was also on the BBC. They didn't say what it was, they just said that they passed it. What else I was going to say is from the cat went as far as the interview a guy in Northern California and a person in Southern California, a person in Central California. And all three of them pretty much said the same thing. If they're not going to grandfather us in, we'll just go back until pre-1996 and go to the black market because it's not worth it. Because already the street pot is like 40 to 50% less than the medical pot already.
Yep.
And you can get better grades of pot for that price
Wow.
from certain districts in California. And the problem is that how are they going to go to a medical market and sell it for less than that?
Yeah.
It's like it's impossible. They couldn't make money, so they were like, the hell with that. And all three of them said the same thing. If they don't grandfather us in at a certain price, then we're not going to do it. We're just going to all go to
I think two questions I have, and I'm willing to take questions and ask them on Monday to some of my friends in Sacramento, and I'm willing to call the sponsor of the legislation's office and speak with them about our questions. So if you have a question, and one of my questions is going to be about people that have already registered and have been established. Is there a grandfathering provision? The only good thing about Amiano's bill is that there was grandfathering in there for pre-existing things, but none of them were gonna deal with the ban in other counties, and that's what I've been having a fit about publicly is your zip code shouldn't restrict your safe access. Like, that's crazy. Brent?
I was gonna touch on a couple of the things that other people mentioned that I don't know how much time or whatnot, but the,
Please do, because I did.
the organizational thing. As humans, we traditionally organize amongst ourselves to do whatever we do, create small communities, and larger ones too, and that's what everyone does as humans, right? And I'm gonna use your wheel as an example just to make it easier on myself.
Please do.
Especially because it has a medical marijuana in the center.
Exactly.
And I always like the term spokesperson because it relates to a wheel.
So nice.
Well, in the medical cannabis arena, everyone has a common thing, medical marijuana. But as we go about our lives and go out, we'll notice that it's not the most important thing to everybody. It's very important, but there's so many other things, and maybe all these different people and organizations might have nothing else in common but the medical marijuana.
That's true.
So it's okay to send spokespeople in and take part in those discussions as we organize, because everyone's already organizing. But as organizations such as Access, you're able to communicate to other people who may not have anything else in common. They may be people of affluence. Maybe they're people who aren't even from San Francisco, but they just come. There's so many different types of people, but we are all tied by that. And when it comes to organizations, I wanted to suggest that. And my definition of organized crime is totally different.
Love it. This is getting good.
As a veteran, I've served my country, and I feel free to talk my opinions on it. And
As
I
you
feel
should.
that
Hear, hear.
the leadership of America, our country has been robbed from us.
Yeah.
Our people have been organized, and they've been organized for their own best interests. And I don't blame people for organizing for their own best interests. But, so I look at the government, and I look at folks who may be labeled as organized crime, I look at corporate greed, people who are stealing people's homes, and I don't differentiate those guys.
Yeah.
I don't call one a group of organized criminals or one a group of legitimate politicians, because to me, everyone's just organizing freely, doing the best they can, the way they can. But we don't have to fall under anyone's subjection. No one's the boss just because they happen to be organizing a bunch of issues.
Yeah.
So the current climate right now causes that people who organize together and because the politics process is so easy to influence in so short a time, Oftentimes organizational structures are working together for months and years, and then finally they're all right. Boom, and then they're gonna pour on the rush.
Right.
1, 2 to 3 months worth of this is what's happening, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. The politicians back here, leave me alone, all right, yeah, don't rubber stamp.
Right.
And it helps that they're getting payola the whole time too, of course. But I think that oftentimes we need to forcefully interject ourselves in the conversations because that is exactly what's happening. And when something comes up, like those bills, it's like, where did they come from? If we don't immediately jump on it, it is only a few months period of time where bam, something become a law that could change our whole, like, I grow pot. I've been growing pot. I'm going to continue to grow pot to change the law.
And we love you for doing that.
It would be very nice if eventually we start morphing the laws into what we really want rather than what pleases just a few people. So,
Yeah.
so our interventions need to be in the direction of the stuff that I see and that I hear, and I eavesdrop on conversations all the time. What's going on? Every law or every legalization thing that I see, except for the CCHI, has a bunch of crap that it's not legalizing, nothing really. We're still going to be arrested for weed, and people who grow weed are still going to be arrested for weed, and that's not legalization. Yeah.
You're not.
So anyway, we need to be aware that just because something seems good, you know, we don't have to put a bunch of crap in place just because it's the only crap available. You know?
I so agree with, like, you know, 99.9% of what you're saying. I have like two things. Like, for me, organized crime is defined by using violence and intimidation. So if an organization is using violence and intimidation tactics to control its membership or to control other people, I do consider that different than you know what I mean?
Organizations that use the media to control us instead of guns. Oh, the media is better than guns, I know, but whatever.
Well, yeah, guns kill you.
The media kind of just kills our brains off.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
They turn
But
into-
I'm talking about like, in a very broad sense, Denise.
Yeah, I know.
Like, somebody who is using intimidation, like, for example, in sex work, if somebody's saying, hey, I'm holding your green card above your head and you're going to go and work tonight, and you're going to bring that money back to me, and I'm going to give you a small percentage of it because I've got your green card. That's organized crime to me, and that's criminal to me. And a lot of what gets called organized crime isn't criminal to me, but there is, I just have to say, you know, just as a woman and as an activist in other realms, like missing and exploited children, there is organized crime. I don't want to make it like there isn't, everybody's all okay. You know, and that's just very personal and from me.
Organized crime on both sides of the fence.
Yes, oh, absolutely, and that's how it happens. I mean, there wouldn't
We are
be,
under the thumb of the world's largest gang, regardless of what we want to do.
hey, there wouldn't be missing and exploited children if there weren't people doing it in law enforcement and organizing it in positions of power, okay? So it's, please, you know, that is very clear. But the other thing I think that what you're bringing up is really important is the time aspect and the aspect of thinking that we can't influence it once it's gotten started. And that's a lot of the questions that I'm going to pose to the best patient advocate I know that gets on the floor of the state houses, which is Lynette Davies. And I have a lot of differences with her. I'm not a Christian. I'm not, you know, I don't use medical cannabis in the Christian sense that she does. But her, when she gets on that floor, I know what's going to come out of her mouth is going to support every patient and every grower that I know, and so I hold her in high esteem. And with you guys' permission, I'd like to ask her about what she thinks we can do with the timeline that we're faced with, and, you know, what can we do, you know, as this comes to be. And then the third thing that you brought up that I totally agree with, Brent, is like, why aren't we making laws that people can comply with instead of laws that make more criminals or make another crime? I hate it when I read a piece of legislation and it says create a new crime.
Right?
I'm like, ah!
Kaiser and all of my doctors and switch to an entirely different provider network because I would need to do that. So that's a terrible burden to be placing on my, you know, doctor-patient relationship. They might go ahead and give me that, but a lot of other people might actually not get that and be not only cut off from their primary care doctor, but their entire doctor network.
Which is what I was talking to Medican about yesterday. I got on the phone, I called the person that I know that keeps up with their politics, and what they told me is their Medican is going to be making a shift. They did make a shift in Ukiah and Santa Rosa. Now they have primary care. And then they're going to join us with a representative in July and talk about their plans for helping the cities of San Francisco and Oakland.
But that doesn't
help in other
If
situations.
I'm in a situation or another person is in a similar situation where they're in a provider network, and that provider network does not make recommendations, and Kaiser is a very large provider
That's
network.
huge.
It's not like it's only a few people, it's affected by that. And they have an actual policy, I've been told, like they won't. Now there might be extreme circumstances, somebody's on chemotherapy and they're, given that palliatively for their cancer, treatment, but it's very, very difficult. And a lot of people would just be not just cut off from cannabis, but cut off from their entire doctor
Their entire
network.
specialists, etc., that people
That's a huge
need.
burden.
Especially if
Mark?
you're a veteran.
Yeah, let me get...
But I want to tag on what you had said, because I was concerned about the medical. First off, if you have to go to a primary care physician, let's say you have to go to Mission Neighborhood Clinic, they're not going to give you one from their private because you're poor, you're drug seeking. Now, if I took my Medicare and went to a private doctor like I did down south, oh sure, I'm a private doctor, I'll give it to you because you're not drug seeking. And it's just the mindset. It's like the #1 drug prescribed in this country is Valium. But you cannot get that by going to Mission Mental Health. They will shut you down because you're drug seeking. And you cannot get it as a poor person, only as a middle class or rich person. And that's what this is going to become if they pass that law that way. That's our biggest point to access.
Okay, John behind me, I didn't... If someone's behind me and I don't see them, just throw something at me.
No, just briefly, Mike, I know that the Kaiser thing and whatever, but when I saw the doctors 14 years ago that were psychiatrists at General Hospital, they said, we don't sign marijuana letters. But, wait, let me finish. They said, but how does it help you? And they had a recording going, so when they went back and they listened and evaluated it, they did not personally sign the letter themselves, but they went to another doctor, AIDS, cancer, consulted, and the thing is if you push it, you might change precedent at the hospital, just like I changed precedent with the doctors that saw me at first. We've got to keep pushing and have hope. You can't just get frustrated and then say it can never be done because we didn't used to have 215 and we do.
I'm not disagreeing, John. In fact, I think I would be persuasive enough to get my ultimatum respected. But even if I get my ultimatum respected, that doesn't mean that another patient would not be denied.